right now, our session today is on tips for student engagement, and we're going to focus today on some of the research, but more importantly, we're going to focus on those successful strategies that you use, that I've used in our face-to-face classrooms, and how we can transfer those strategies to our online classrooms. Super important. So again, we ask that you keep your microphones muted. You don't have to have your camera on, but we welcome you to do so. And we will begin. So the first thing that we're going to do is invite you to a Slido. So on the screen, you see slido.com. If you are able to, we would like you to go on to slido.com, or if you have a smartphone, you could take your smartphone, open up the camera, put the camera right to that QR code, and on your smartphone, you will be connected right to our first poll, which is based on the question you see on your screen. What are some ways you have engaged our students in class, face-to-face and online? So feel free to go ahead and do that right now, please. Slido.com, there's the event code. You'll see the text box for that code, 83908. And if you happen to have your phone handy, just take the camera option, click, put the camera right to the code, and voila, it should pop right up. So let's see what we have. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see our word cloud. So what are some ways you've engaged our students in your face-to-face or online classroom? I see discussions, super important. Questioning, group activities, online labs, thank you so much. Discussion seems to be a heavy hit. Face-to-face labs, external publisher sites. Slido, yes. Use Slido in the future. It's super easy, it's free. Any more ideas? I'm going to hold out. There may be 15 more seconds. Kahoot, videos, excellent. So I see a lot of discussion, and that's excellent because we're going to talk a lot about engaging students via discussion today. So let's go back now to our PowerPoint. What we wanted to do for you today is start with some of the research, but then we want to take that research and we want to bring it into what I'm referring to as our practitioner's corner. So this, in my mind, is similar to what we would talk about in the hallway or the water cooler. I like to make it a little more formal and fancy and say practitioner's corner. And so some of the research that you see on the screen right now is, I guarantee, 100% what you are already doing in your face-to-face classrooms. And Melody and I are going to share with you today some ways that you can take these successful strategies and bring them into your online classrooms. Paraphrasing, we have our students restate. We have them select and note take, right? So they're deciding what's critical and what's important. Questioning is big. We saw this in the discussions just a few moments ago on Slido. Summarizing, our students need to be able to summarize in their own words. And then, of course, we all need to be using wait time. And wait time, according to Rowe, is 5 seconds or more. And we know, research tells us that when we wait, although it may be uncomfortable for us, when we wait in an online discussion or face-to-face for at least 5 seconds, we have a greater participation. The responses are of higher quality. The students are thinking a little bit deeper, and they're questioning. And so we have that more opportunity for the cycle of inquiry to happen, which is what we want. Now, how do we take all of this and bring it into our online classroom? Well, here are a few tips for you, and I'm sure you are already doing this now in your online class as well as face-to-face. There's something called the 10-2-2 rule, which some of us may think of it as maybe a KWL, what you know, what you want to know, what you learn. Some of us may just break our students up into small groups. But the big idea is that as an instructor, research tells us that whether we're presenting like this online, whether we're in our face-to-face classroom, that it's really important that we don't speak for more than 10 minutes at a time. And once we have hit that 10-minute mark, students are zoning out. They're thinking of different things. The focus is just not there. So we want to at least limit that 10-minute time. And so for those of us who are more familiar with the lecture style of 20, 30 minutes, we really want to reconsider breaking that lecture style up into 10-minute hits. And at the end of the first 10 minutes, we need to give our students time to process. And what this looks like for us when we're using Zoom is using that breakout session. Get the students, during, with the Zoom permissions rather, you can preset your breakout rooms, you can manually set them, you can have Zoom just put people in alternative rooms on it, randomly. All right, so in any event, I mean, you get the idea. It's really important, right? So you're strategically thinking about those chunks of time in 10 minutes. You're providing students with at least 2 minutes to process in small groups. And then you're allowing them time, 2 minutes, to reflect on their own. This 10-2-2 rule, which is, I mean, let's just say for argument's sake, 15 minutes of the time that you're with them on Zoom, is very powerful. Now imagine bringing your students back after 10 minutes, 2 minutes, and 2 minutes. So let's say bringing them back in 15 minutes. And during that 2 minutes of breakout time and maybe reflection, you're popping in and out of breakout rooms and you're hearing the conversation. So imagine 15 minutes later, well, now you're able to take what you just heard in each of those small breakout rooms, and then that will inform your continued conversation with them. So here are some other, if we go to our practitioner's corner now, here are some other ways that we can engage our students in those discussions. There's something called, in terms of paraphrasing, there's a strategy called A-B mind streaming. This is something you could, again, put students in small groups, and A-B would be one person is A, the other person is B. And for each A and then B, they have 1 minute to paraphrase what they just heard or what they think that 10-minute lecture was all about. And at the end of that 1 minute, it reverses to the person B, and then person B paraphrases. Now, you may be thinking, well, person A, well, they have to start. Person B gets it easy. Yes, person B could copy, but what I found when I use this strategy, and it's not a copy to copy. It's person B, if they are going to copy A, there's a little wiggle room there. But the big idea here is that they're attending with each other and they're able to paraphrase and listen to each other. Selecting or note taking, you could get them in small groups and you could have them share the big ideas that they individually just heard during that 10-minute lecture time. Questioning, it's the same idea. You can give them questions that they can talk about during the 2-minute time, or you can have them generate questions together as a group. And then when they come back to the whole group, they can take the 1 or 2 questions that they've created together and they can ask the whole group. Summarizing, there's a really great strategy called magnet summaries. A magnet summary is when the students pull out those words that we would consider magnets. So the big ideas, they stick out. So they stick, it's supposed to be like they stick to the brain. So the students would create a magnet summary highlighting those 1, 2, or 3 magnet words that are pulled right from the last conversation of that 10-minute topic. And then there's the 1-sentence summary. So you see that there are ways that we can take the 10-2-2 rule, have you present some content information, give them 2 minutes of debriefing on their own, 2 minutes of processing on their own, reflecting, and then coming back around. And I'd like to open up, just take a pause for a moment and see if anyone has any comments. If anyone would like to open up their microphone and share some ideas or thoughts. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of imagine doing this and then telling my students, okay, go out in your breakout rooms and talk to each other. And they're just kind of like, what do we do? What are we supposed to do? We're just no idea. And then they come back and I say, okay, guys, how did it go? And then I get rather feeble responses.
Yes. So that's not a reason for us not to do it, however, right? So what can we do when we know that's going to happen? We anticipate that's going to happen. How can we prepare our students, or what can we do ahead of time to address this and minimize the percentage that this may happen. Any ideas?
I have some ideas.
Sure.
Okay, I could present them with a puzzle or give them some type of problem, because if there's an object, if there's a goal they have to achieve, now this could be anything from, for what I do, they have to calculate the number of ATPs from glycolysis. They have to work that out and then they have to tell me. So I don't tell them that early on. I just talk about the other stuff, and they have to do that. So that's that's just a way to give them a tangible, actionable task, as it were, that they can do. Or maybe I could intentionally say something that's wrong and tell them, okay, in the past 5 minutes, I just said something that's wrong. You have to tell me what it is. Go back over. I might even have like a little sheet they can look at, because they're not going to remember everything I said. And I can say, look at the sheet and tell me what's wrong. And maybe I don't mention that it's wrong, but I just have the sheet. There's a bunch of stuff. You guys talk it over and get back to me and tell me what's wrong. Or I could have several sheets where I say, you take sheet A, you take sheet B, you take sheet C, and pick out the wrong things.
Yeah. So clearly there are ways that we can ahead of time proactively set our students up for success using something like the 10-2-2 rule. So I'm going to share a couple, on that idea, Dave, I'm going to share my screen once again, and I'm going to bring us to anticipation guides. So an anticipation guide, first and foremost, is a flexible document or a template, if you will. And what it does is just what it says. It helps the student anticipate the learning. Two things. The first thing is that it activates background knowledge. The second, it hooks students into wanting to learn more. So specifically, the students are presented with concepts that allow them to think about what they already know, perhaps misconceptions. So the comments can be a statement that you write that reflects a larger segment, true or false statements, or just a statement itself that you're going to word the statement so that it provokes that critical thinking. So it's literally a document that you could have in your online classroom, and you ask them to fill it out ahead of time. So for example, if you imagine the true false statement, I have an example to show you in just a moment, but if you consider true false. So just before the lecture or just before your class, you have the students fill out the anticipation guide, and it's simply they could be a agree, disagree to the statement. It could be a true, false. They select whether the statements are true or false. Then they engage in the class. At the end of the class, they revisit their anticipation guide to see if they've changed their mind. So they're thinking prior to their exposure to the new information or the engaging activity, it, more than likely will be different than the end. So I'll give you a very specific example. I shared with many of you about my story when I taught 5th grade science and the arachnid. We had an arachnid unit, and the boys were saying, they were arguing that whether or not spiders had skeletons, and one boy was emphatic. He said, yes, they do, because when he steps on them, they crunch. So one of my statements could be, spiders have skeletons. And before the class time, my students would fill out, and one of the statements is spiders have skeletons, and they would mark true or false. During my class, when we were talking and we're learning about the exoskeleton, right, students would then go back to the guide afterward, and they would correct whether or not they marked true or false, and then they would give me the why. Well, it's false because they actually have exoskeletons. So the big idea here is not so much that they have to hand these in. Yes, you more than likely would want to see them. But the bigger idea is that you're allowing them in small groups or as a class to build a consensus and provide the evidence, the why behind the fact that they were thinking one thing prior to engaging in class, and now they're thinking something different perhaps as a follow-up. So that's one example of how you can really engage them in terms of what Dave is talking about. And there are templates that I'll share with you in a moment. So here's just an example of an anticipation guide. And if you Google anticipation guides, it's endless. You will see them. It's for every subject area, every idea you could possibly think of. And there are several ways that, in terms of the formatting. So this example that you see here, you have questions that you would provide, or statements that you would provide to the students before they read or before they engage in the conversation, and then after. And again, the big idea is that evidence, that reflection, and the big idea is the why behind their change, the fact that they may or may not have changed their mind. I'm going to move us along now to the template idea. I know Melody has an awful lot she wants to share with you as well, and I want to be mindful of that. So templates. And I think, Cleo, I think you and I at one point, we talked about templates. And Dave, when you were just explaining some examples, you were hitting on templates as well. So these are really organizers that we provide for our students to help structure their thinking. Before we use a template, and again, if you Google class templates, or you could even Google by the content of the subject area, it's endless. But the big idea here is that you're explaining the structure of the template to the students, and not assuming that when they get that template, when they see it uploaded into the online classroom, that they're going to know how to use it. So you will have to take a little bit of time to explain how the template is designed rather to help their thinking and their learning. It's a really good idea to provide a similar sample of the template that you use in the beginning. Maybe you fill it out together. Maybe you're giving them that annotated, filled out template that they can use when they fill out their own. Students can use a template during your live class on Zoom. They can use it when they're reading something asynchronously in more of a self-directed style. And it should also include some reflection questions for them. They need to learn as a learner how templates help. So they need to be reflecting on how templates help. So something simple like, how did this template help or hinder your thinking, your writing, or whatever. Super, super valuable for students. And again, I am going to move us along to give you some samples. So this is what I'm referencing. I just pulled out a couple. Some of these are ones that I did use when I was teaching face-to-face. And I often teach education courses through Southern New Hampshire University. I teach them online. And so I share these templates with my students, my education students. Again, you can go online, and Melody and I are going to give you some links. You can go online and just plug in templates, and many of them will appear for you. So here are just a few examples. Now imagine you create a template and you fill this out with your students in your Zoom class. And then you provide more with them for them to work on independently in the class. Very, very powerful. And finally, I want to just share a little bit about essential questions. I really believe that essential questions used in our face-to-face and online classrooms can have a great impact on the evolving of student learning. So essential questions, for those of you who are not familiar, they're really designed to stimulate thought, provoke inquiry, and spark more questioning. So we're not necessarily looking at that essential question that has a black and white yes/no answer. So they're not answerable with finality or a single lesson. And each time, the big idea here is that each time students revisit that essential question, they're coming up with a different and a deeper answer. So here are a few samples of essential questions. On the left-hand side, those are examples of not essential questions. And on the right hand, those are examples of essential questions. And you'll notice the ones on the left are answerable with a definitive answer. So what are the steps? What was that key event that sparked World War I? What is the scientific method? So students can actually answer those questions, and there's definitely a right, wrong answer, or more so a right, wrong answer. However, the question, is there ever just a war? So, and you know, for our English composition educators, how does an author create meaning in a text? Now that, the more students, so let's go back to that, is there ever just a war? The more students engage in your lessons, the more they read, then they go back and they see that question. Their answers are deeper because they've been exposed to more and more information that allow them to think a little bit more outside the box, if you will. I believe there are millions of ways, literally millions of ways, that we can use essential questioning in our face-to-face and online classrooms. You could set them up in your Canvas class. You can bring them into your Zoom class and present them with the same question, and you could ask them the essential question and then revisit the essential question. And for those of you who are using entrance and exit slips, this is a great way to utilize that strategy, which I won't be able to cover that today, but I will put that in the notes. So I've just presented several pedagogical strategies, and I'm sure that you have used, if not all of them, many of them in your face-to-face classroom. I encourage you to try using them, even if you try just one. Try using just one in your online class and Zoom session. So I'm going to now turn it over to Melody, who is going to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa.
You are welcome.
Yeah. Could you please, yeah. So here, our second Slido question. I would like to invite everybody to go to slide.com again, but this time use the event code and enter your answer for another question. So what are the strategy and learning activities you've tried in your face-to-face course that you do not think can be transferred online? Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I meant to add, it's really hard to have a discuss. I'm teaching financial analysis, and we're doing like present value, future value, discounted cash flows. That's, I didn't finish my thought, Slido sentence, but it's really hard to have a discussion around that. That's the end of my comment.
Thank you.
And I'm looking for ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, I am really seeing a lot of what will lend itself to virtual reality and augmented reality. This is great. Excellent, excellent, excellent.
So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I can see some keywords stand out about your sharing, like the groups work or complex concepts, like how to transfer it over to online environment. So here is the matching work. We reflect on what we have tried previously in the traditional face-to-face class, and we're trying to find the matching action or the similar components in the Zoom live class. For example, using the PPT during a presentation is very common when you teach face-to-face class. Majority instructors just read over the PowerPoint on monitor or big screen. In Zoom class, you can do the same. You can just share the Zoom, use the Zoom share function like what we are doing right now. Have your PowerPoint display on one screen, and the teacher can read over or talk through. And the more traditional way, like the instructor writing some keywords in the whiteboard, or more previously, they're using Blackboard back in my time. The instructor using write the equations and every complex concept doing the on the Blackboard. In Zoom, there is a whiteboard feature. You can just using the whiteboard and using your mouse to write the keywords or drawing pictures. You can do anything. And another advanced for the whiteboard is that you can invite your students to collaboratively write anything on the whiteboard, or have them using the whiteboard inside of a breakout rooms. I know that a lot of instructors have already tried using media representations, like showing a poster or play the YouTube video in the face-to-face class. In the Zoom session, you can do the same. It's this easy way. Just share the screen and go to the YouTube and share the YouTube video you're playing. And if you don't have time to show the entire video clips or poster, you can send them the links through chat window, so that the students can go to the link, review the document, or review any media links after class. And the polling, traditionally, the teacher just asks students' opinion, and students freely talked, or they raise their hand to give an answer, yes or no. And in the Zoom, you can also try the Zoom poll feature. That means you only need to have this question ready, and you can click on Zoom poll features, and then students will choose an answer, yes or no, or you can use multiple choice questions to do a very quick quizzes, so that you check in their understanding about an idea. And the traditional ways to use quizzes is the students like writing down the answers through paper, or you hand over the handouts. Doing the quiz online, you can use the Canvas quizzes or any other different kinds of online quiz tools. It makes the quizzes in class more effectively, that students doesn't need to be worried too much about like how to like the timing, and you can put the timing in the setting of the Canvas quiz, and you just send over the quiz link so that the students can take the quiz online. And the group discussion is the most important like ways for engage the students, both traditionally or in the Zoom setting. Normally, the face-to-face teachers put the students in groups or pairs, have them discuss, like writing some prompts for the students, and let the students group discuss the same topic or different topics. In the Zoom breakout rooms, you can just need to set up the Zoom previously, or you can auto-assign, like, for example, group the students by 3. Or you can think and pair, group the students by 2, and you just click on the Zoom breakout rooms. Then it will automatically send all your students by groups. And some recent research show that Zoom breakout rooms actually save 2 minutes per 45 minutes lesson. Because when in face-to-face settings, there have a lot of transition time, the students moving their chairs around, or when it is ending time for the group discussion, they feel so hard to, the teacher feels so hard to bring back the students to a big classroom discussion. But in Zoom breakout rooms, you set up the timing for their discussion, like the 5 minutes discussion, and the Zoom will automatically send a reminder when there is only 1 minute left, and the students will be prepared. Okay, our time is end, and we need to speed up a little bit. So it's kind of moving the discussion more efficiently. That's the very basic strategies that you can try from the face-to-face to Zoom. I just encourage everybody to think what you have already done in face-to-face, and trying to find a solution that has like similar solutions to engage the students in the online settings. Okay. And we know that in the online course, the Zoom live session is very essential to include the students, feel them like to engage them into in-class discussions, in-class participation. But outside of class, there are definitely other ways that you can try to enhance the students' participation. Instead of providing them like heavy text course materials, you can provide multiple means of representations using the concept map, internet memes, diagram posters, and using some videos. You can create a welcome video at the beginning of the semester just to briefly describe what's the course object and what's your expectation in general for the students. Or if you have a very complex Canvas layout, you can design Canvas navigation video just to walk through the students how to navigate your course. Okay, here is the course content, here is the module page, and here is the assignment you need to submit, and here is where you can check your grades. And optionally, you can use some short video lessons. It doesn't have to be original created by your own. You can best use some open resources, borrow some YouTube videos and short clips you have already used in your past course.
Or you could contact us, and here in the Media Studio, we can help you create your videos.
Yeah, that's true.
Just saying.
I'm not going to like describe each item. So this is something you can try in Canvas, because I guess the most important thing that a lot of instructors said that it's very hard to process the group. So the Canvas group, you can set up a group environment that the students can engage with each other. You can assign them as the group project the same way as in a face-to-face course. They can use a Zoom to chat with each other when they have a group discussion outside of class. And you can set up a group project to use the peer review assignment or group assignments to facilitate their discussion outside of class. Yeah, so this is something you can explore. And for the grading, I'm sure majority of you already know that in the Canvas grading, you can try to use the speed grader where you can annotate their paper, original paper. In this way, you can highlight, for example, you can highlight some student sentence and make a bubble comment so that the students will feel that you are actually pay much attention to what their works. They feel is participate in the real time, has the feedback directly from the instructors. And you can use the rubric to grade the paper based on a few different criteria. And you can align the assignment rubric into the learning outcome for the entire course so that you can have a big picture of the students' performance across the entire semester.
And and Melody, one of the things that we're going to be providing for folks in our Getting Started series is a way to look at the outcomes alignment in Canvas. It's not the best. I would have hoped that Canvas would have thought of a little more detailed use of outcomes, but it is something for us. And then along with Canvas Analytics, that definitely does help. So thank you very much, Melody. Folks, as you can imagine, we have an awful lot in store for you. Melody and I here in the hub, I say that, it really is the Innovation Hub. And we have a lot that we are going to be rolling out in service of you and our students. And here is just for the rest of the year anyway, in this soft opening, we have the learning series every Friday. And as I mentioned in the chat, I encourage you to think about perhaps something that you would like to share with our colleagues via this setting. So you could, starting in January 2021, because we already have, for the rest of this calendar year, we already have this series all lined up. But you could potentially, if you wanted to, you could present with myself and Melody during one of these sessions. We can help you set it up. We will do most of the work for you. It's just a wonderful way for you to share and for us to learn from each other. You see here that session 2, which is in a week from now, we're going to focus on differentiated instruction. It's important that we learn how to differentiate with intent so that we don't put any more stress on ourselves and our students. So Melody and I are going to share some key strategies on how you can differentiate, which means literally how you can personalize. Megan knows how to differentiate, I know, how you can personalize for groups of students. Everybody meets the same objectives, but perhaps they're doing it in different ways. And then we do have our Getting Started series that begins Tuesday coming. We are going to focus on Canvas. Here in the hub, we do have limited seats. Melody and I have to go around and count how many seats for social distancing, but we will be limited for obvious safety, but we will have unlimited virtual for the same time. So essentially, you could choose to come on campus and sit down at a computer, bring your own computer, or sit down at one of ours, or you could connect with us virtually, and we're going to go over some pieces of Canvas that you may be less familiar with. More information will be rolling out as we get closer to the grand opening. And with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, this recording will be available to you early next week, along with the notes and the entire, this whole PDF will be, the presentation rather, will be available via PDF, along with references and other links and whatnot. Your time is very valuable, and we do appreciate you sharing it with us today. So thank you to everybody for joining. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much for coming.